Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we got a great show for you today. We're coming to you live from Big Daddy BDU, Big Daddy Unlimited Studios in Gainesville, Florida. And we're going to start with a story about Joe Biden. He actually said that Donald Trump was the first racist that has ever been elected to president, that has ever occupied the White House. The first racist. Not only the first president, but the first president that's racist. So, it's a little bit crazy, but we'll get into it. Bernie Sanders and Ocasio-Cortez, our second story, are writing the Democratic Party platform. They're supposed to formally, I think, vote on it on Monday. But the Democratic platform, if you were ever wondering who's actually the power behind the throne, I think it's becoming more clear all the time that Bernie Sanders and his sidekick, Ocasio-Cortez, are running the show, and we'll explain in just a moment. And then hopefully we'll get time for our third story. Mad Max, that's who I affectionately call Maxine Waters, she says that President Trump is already preparing for when he loses and how he's going to hold on to the White House even after he loses, and that these, quote, troops, if you will, that he's deploying to cities like Portland are just a test run for how he will basically occupy the United States of America once he loses. So we'll get into the craziness of that. But we start with Joe Biden. And this is an NBC News article. Biden says Trump is first racist U.S. president. Former Vice President Joe Biden on Wednesday called President Donald Trump the first racist president in U.S. history. Well, let me ask, first of all, is that even possible? I mean, we'll talk about whether or not Donald Trump is actually a racist in just a moment. But Biden's statement in and of its own that Donald Trump, if he were a racist, would be the first one ever in the White House. Is that even possible that could be true? I mean, he's the 45th president. So of the other 44, none of them could have been racist. I mean, it just defies logic. First of all, depending on, I guess, what your definition of racist, let's just take Woodrow Wilson as an example. I mean, he literally had the KKK in the White House. He literally spoke out in favor of the KKK from the White House. Check out this quote here from Woodrow Wilson, who is seen as the godfather of the progressive movement, by the way, and his affection for the KKK, basically talking about their great rise to power to defend the white man. And this is someone that progressives over the years have held in high esteem. Of course, he's a Democrat, most of the ones that are. And how about like Bill Clinton? Now, Bill Clinton a racist? Well, Bill Clinton actually used Confederate-themed campaign literature in the South in his first run for president when he won the presidency. This is actually a piece from the Clinton-Gore campaign that was used in places in the South. I mean, it's just crazy to think that even if true, then it's not true, that President Trump is a racist. He would hardly be the first. And then, of course, and I know Hillary wasn't president, but she did occupy the White House. She actually started the birther issue. A lot of people don't seem to know that. You never hear that from the mainstream media. But it wasn't Donald Trump that started the birther issue. Now, did he exploit it? And perhaps, in my opinion, it wasn't his finest moment to go down that particular thing. Yeah, he exploited it. There's no question about that. But Hillary Clinton, her original campaign against Barack Obama in the primary, she is the one that first floated the birther idea. And then as far as racists in the White House, well, of course, George Washington was a racist, right? I mean, that's what we hear every day. He owned slaves, so he had to be a racist. So from the very beginning, the guy that basically was the architect of our freedom, George Washington, he was a racist, so he couldn't. The first president was, and then Thomas Jefferson, who literally wrote the fundamental founding papers of the United States of America. I mean, he was a slave owner, had slave owner children, right? So he was a racist. I mean, not to mention that every white person, I mean, of course, Barack Obama could not have been a racist. So the whole thing is just ridiculous on its face to say that Donald Trump, of all people, would be the first racist. And I'm going to make a case here in just a moment that Donald Trump is, in fact, not a racist. And perhaps, and hang in there when I say this, 'cause I'm going to explain it more in a minute, that Donald Trump, if he is a racist, he's the worst racist to ever occupy the White House, because he basically sucks at it. And I'll explain that in just a moment. Speaking at a virtual town hall organized by the Service Employees International Union, Biden offered the assessment of the president after Suk Kim, a South Korean immigrant. So he plays this video. I started to play it, but I decided not to. It's a little incoherent. But this woman, and I'm not knocking her, but she talks about, in a pretty heavy accent, how she was felt like she was being undressed, so to speak, racially by a white couple looking at her. And she just assumed, she didn't know what they were talking about, but basically assumes they were thinking she was Chinese and that she was, walking germ. But it's I don't know. Biden supposedly was touched by this. It seems a bit contrived. But the South Korean immigrant detailed an experience she had being racially profiled at a supermarket and expressed concern over Trump's coronavirus rhetoric, including referring to COVID-19 as the China virus. The China virus. So they're using that as the evidence that Donald Trump is the first, mind you, racist president, because he called the Wuhan flu the China virus, in fact, because it came from what? From China. I mean, it's unbelievable. But here's the thing. They talk about racism and China. I just got to show you this video. Let me set it up really quickly. This video was actually taken a couple of years ago, as I understand it, but it was recently leaked. And what it shows is Uyghur Muslims being rounded up, blindfolded, their heads shaved, and they're actually being put on trains and taken to somewhere unknown. A slave sweatshop is what the report is. But check this out. And you talk about racism. It's never really talked about. But look at China right now. Check this out.
Shocking vision has emerged of shackled prisoners in a mostly Muslim region of China. The blindfolded detainees are from China's minority Uyghur Muslims, a European security source has told Sky News. The footage was published anonymously on Twitter and YouTube. China has denied widespread reports of concentration camps.
Now, there's more video that actually literally shows them being loaded on trains, and this is speculated that this video was actually official drone footage for the Chinese government, but that someone leaked it. Now, guess where it appears they're going? They're going to places to make Nike shoes. Yeah, the woke that basically criticized the United States through Kaepernick of being a racist country. That particular company is making millions, if not billions of dollars off of slave labor right now. And they're backed by the Democrats, right? And then you talk about it appears that your iPhones are being made by Uyghur Muslims, or at least some components of it. So when it comes to racism and everything else, and we'll talk a little bit more about China and Mr. Biden in just a moment. Biden said the way he deals with people, talking about President Trump, based on color of their skin, their national origin, where they're from, is absolutely sickening. No sitting president has ever done this. Never, never, never. Well, I don't know if that's true or not, but I know one thing is true. President Trump has never done that. This idea, let me look it over this again, that he deals with people based on the color of their skin. Please show me evidence of that. There is no evidence you can find out there. I'm confident in saying, but if you've got it, put it on, put a link to it or something on Facebook. Put some evidence out there, and I'll look at it. But I see no evidence whatsoever that Donald Trump, he can be accused of many, many things, But dealing with people based on skin color is absolutely not one of them. National origin, that's a bit more tricky. It's not really about national origin like he's talking about, like the Muslim ban and stuff like that. That is based on terrorism. If you look at it, Donald Trump did not put a blanket on ban on Muslim countries. What he did was specifically target those that were known hotbeds of terrorist activity. Now, whether you want to make that out to be national origin, I'd say it's national security more than anything else. Where they're from, same thing as sick. He said no sitting president has ever done this. Well, if that's true, then neither has President Donald Trump. He goes on to say, Biden, no Republican president has done this, no Democratic president, he continued. We've had racists, and they existed. They've tried to be elected president, but he's the first one that has, and the way he pits people against one another is all designed to divide the country, divide people, not pull them together. Well, I love that line where he talks about that we've had racists who have run for president. They've tried to become president, and he's absolutely right about that. And who should know better than Joe Biden, because he's a racist. Yeah, I said it, and I'll show you some proof in just a second. And he's running for president. We've played this many times, but we're going to continue to play this. This is Mr. Biden when he was as cognizant, I guess, as he could be. Actually had color on and hair on his head when he was pushing the crime bill as a sponsor of it during the Clinton administration in 1994. And he's talking about how we got to get black children off the street to protect basically white folks like him and his mama and grandmama and all that kind of stuff. And he tells you flat out. Now, I want you to pay close attention. If you have not seen this video, pay close attention, because he tells you that when it comes to whatever reasons are causing black children, that's what he's referring to. I mean, he doesn't quite say it that way, but trust me, that's who he's referring to. That when it comes to that, he doesn't care what's causing it, doesn't care what's happening in the black neighborhoods. He just wants to get the predators and the thugs off the street. Check it out.
Take back the streets. It doesn't matter whether or not the person that is accosting your son or daughter or my son or daughter, my wife, your husband, my mother, your parents. It doesn't matter whether or not they were deprived as a youth. It doesn't matter or not whether or not they had no background that enabled them to become socialized into the fabric of society. It doesn't matter whether or not they're the victims of society. The end result is they're about to knock my mother on the head with a lead pipe, shoot my sister, beat up my wife, take on my sons. So I don't want to ask what made them do this. They must be taken off the street. That's number one. There's a consensus on that. Unless we do something about that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally, I yield myself 3 more minutes, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. We should focus on them now. If we don't, they will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now.
That's good enough.
And Madam President, we have predators.
He says we don't care. He doesn't care if children are born out of wedlock in black community. Of course, there are in white communities as well. He doesn't care whatever may be causing. There may be victims of society, right? Which the whole Democratic deal now is victimization, right? He doesn't care. So that is the guy, if you're voting for Biden, especially if you're a person of color, which he basically cast out with this whole thing is about pandering to black America, that if you're a black American, that is your guy, the guy that tells you that your children are thugs, that that it doesn't matter what caused them to be what they are. So there's no solution there. The only solution Biden offers is to pull your children off the street and lock them up and throw away the key to keep their predators. That is the guy that you're supporting if you vote for Joe Biden. Because you want to know about cognizant Joe Biden? I don't know if he still exists, but to what extent he exists, that's him right there. Trump has previously claimed Biden called him racist and xenophobic for restricting travel from China earlier this year. Yeah, he called him everything but a child. Think about that. They're saying that President Trump didn't react soon enough, even though, as I pointed out in yesterday's show, the timeline I've shown several times, all the Democrats were basically saying, oh, there's nothing to worry about. Go party, go hug people in Chinatown. Party. You need to come down to Chinatown and party both in New York and San Francisco. All that kind of thing. Nothing to see here. Move along. When President Trump issued, the first world leader, by the way, to issue a travel ban on China. And it is no question that if President Trump hadn't have done that, we'd have been in far worse shape. But Biden has labeled Trump's handling of the pandemic as xenophobic. Oh, okay. So what would happen if we had a president, God help us, Biden? How would he handle anything coming from China? Well, I think Billy Bob tells me, if you hadn't met my psychic sidekick, he's Billy Bob Bass. He's got a Twitter handle, by the way. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. And he tells me that, hey, we've got video that basically shows Biden's opinion of China, and he's right. And this is back during the earlier part of the 2020 campaign when they still had more than just tabula rasa Joe, blank slate Joe, up there running for president. He laughs about China being a threat. All the while, he talks a little bit about corruption, but the corruption apparently is Joe Biden and his family in China. Anyway, let's play it because this will show you what a Biden presidency might look like when it comes to China policy. Check it out.
They have. China is going to eat our lunch? Come on, man. They can't even figure out how to deal with the fact that they have this great division between the China Sea and the mountains in the west. They can't figure out how they're going to deal with the corruption that exists within the system. I mean, they're not bad folks, but guess what? They're not competition for us.
That's good enough. So they're not a threat. They can't figure out how to deal with the corruption. Well, I think they figured out if they just pay you and your son, your family enough, that maybe it'll all go away. But that China is no threat to us. Is there any American right now, forget party, can look in the mirror and really say that China is no threat to us? If anything has come out of this nightmare of this pandemic, as some of my listeners call plandemic, which I think you're more right than not, is there anyone that can't say what we've realized, if you didn't realize it before, that China is a direct threat not only to the United States, but literally to the world? President Trump is the only one that's really been speaking out against this, and he's been right all along. And of course, let's get back to this, this idea of past racist presidents. Well, there's no doubt we've had some past racist presidents. I'll give you a statistic here that shows that it's statistically impossible not to have had some racist presidents given the history of the Democratic Party. There have been 15 Democrats who have served as president of the United States. Now, you got to keep in mind that there was a time when there was no Democratic or Republican Party for that matter. So some of the people that served president were members of neither party. But there have been 15. The first was Andrew Jackson. Oh, Andy Jackson, man. Now, he's a piece of work, man. I know President Trump actually kind of likes some aspects of him. And like anything else, all people are mixed bags. But Andrew Jackson, man, he was racist. I mean, there's all kind of evidence about slavery and stuff with Andrew Jackson. And keep in mind, when it comes to Native Americans, and I know I've got a growing Native American audience out there. I really appreciate it very much. But Andrew Jackson, man, I mean, he's basically, I think, responsible for the Trail of Tears and all that. I mean, no president more single-handedly persecuted and oppressed Native Americans than Andrew Jackson. And didn't they try to tear his statue down just recently? He's the first Democratic president. That's one thing about the Democrats. If you look at the statues they're targeting, for the most part, they're trying to wipe away their own history, especially here in the South. But racist president, yeah, Donald Trump is not one of them. We've had many of them. Matter of fact, Lyndon Johnson, the father supposedly of the civil rights, even though that's really not true, he famously said, and I'm not even going to quote him full out, that if we get this second civil rights bill passed, he said, we'll own the in vote for the next 100, 200 years, something to that effect. Yeah, and he was a Democrat, right? But there have been plenty of racist presidents. Donald Trump is not only not the first, he's not one of them, but let me just tell you. Oh, and by the way, when it comes to Republicans, racist, aren't they the party that was doing away with slavery, that gave blacks the right to vote? And as far as that, and yeah, but you tore down, you Democrats, the armed wing of the Democratic Party, the Antifa and the Black Lives Matter, they tore down the statue of Frederick Douglass. And Frederick Douglass is essentially one of the founders and fathers of true freedom, especially for black America in the United States. But they tore him down. It was Democrats that did that, or people and I haven't even heard Joe Biden say a peep about the statues, especially when it comes to somebody like Frederick Douglass. They've been mum about that. But as far as President Trump, let me just tell you, if President Trump is a racist and a white supremacist, like they say, he's the worst one that has ever occupied the office. Now, before you flick off and go, oh, I can't believe this, because some of you are new to the show, some of you have heard this before. He's the worst ever because guess what? He totally sucks at it. Because prior to the pandemic, black unemployment was at an all-time low. Black home ownership was at an all-time high. Black business ownership was up 400%. He was doing so well in the black community that Bob Johnson, the first black billionaire, founder of BET, famously came out, but you never see this anymore. I play it occasionally, and I'm sure we'll play it again. He came out and praised Donald Trump, saying that Donald Trump's policies had brought light, talking about economic light, into neighborhoods that had never seen it before. So if Donald Trump is a racist, he's the worst one in the history of the presidency because he absolutely sucks at it. But Joe Biden is just pandering to the black community, man. I can't pretend to speak for black folks, but if he were pandering to me like that, I would be insulted. But we'll move on. And this is about the Democratic Party. This is a story coming out of Politico. They are shaping up the Democratic Party platform. It's that time because the conventions, or whatever we're going to call them, are near. And the progressives are taking over the party even more so, if that's possible. Where progressives won and lost in the Democratic platform, this is a political order. Progressives hate incrementalism, but they're learning to take what they can get from Joe Biden. Well, that's because Joe Biden is not the Joe Biden of old. Now, I'm not letting him off the hook for that video we showed earlier, and we'll play it again often between now and the end of the end of the election. But Joe is a tabula rasa. That's my new nickname for Joe Biden, tabula rasa Joe. Blank slate, man. That's why the Bernie Sanders, the Ocasio-Cortez, Elizabeth Warrens, all that, they love Joe Biden because they feel like they can just, the slate is clean, they can just write in something, and that'll be exactly who he is. It's kind of like one of that, what's that game where you play where they put the card on your head? That's what Joe Biden, he won't know what's happening, but they'll put it forward whatever they want. After failing earlier this month to persuade a Biden unity task force to endorse Medicare for all, not to mention the Green New Deal, a federal jobs guarantee, and pot legislation, that's what they want, a guaranteed job and pot legislation. So you get to smoke pot and guaranteed getting paid. Aides to Bernie, no problem could ever come from that. Aides to Bernie Sanders want an explicit nod to single-payer, now I got to make a point about this, single-payer movement in a draft 80-page Democratic Party platform obtained by Politico. They also successfully lobbied for a somewhat less hawkish foreign policy than Democrats had in their platform 4 years ago. Bernie, as I've been telling you now for the last several weeks, I am more convinced that Bernie is the kingmaker. He is the power behind the throne. It's not going to be the vice president like everybody thinks, of course, unless Biden dies, which I hope that won't happen. But they're going to pick someone they can control there as well. Bernie Sanders is calling the shots along with Ocasio-Cortez. You doubt me at your own peril. But this single payer thing, let me get to that very quickly. Don't be fooled for a minute by any of the Democrats in the 2020 field that there was really a debate about whether we should have nationalized health care. There has never really been that debate in the Democratic Party. They are 100% for nationalizing health care and the single payer plan. The only reason they didn't push that forward ahead of Obamacare is they didn't think they could get it past the American people. And so they're doing it incrementally. And there's a reason why the website failed so miserably when Obamacare launched it. It's intended to be that way because they want us to get so deep into socialized medicine and they have so many problems that they say, screw it, man. The only way to really get this straight is to just go full bore, single payer, let the government take it over, and that's what they're leaning to. So this idea that there are moderates in the Democratic Party when it comes to health care, there are not. There are just some that believe we got to do it incrementally, and some like Bernie that just want to do it overnight. That's the only difference. But said Analia Meha, who is Sanders' political director, support for Medicare for all has never been mentioned in a Democratic Party platform. Its inclusion now is significant. And that's true. They're absolutely emboldened by Trump derangement syndrome. They're telling you, if you'll just wake up, America, and take these progressives at their word, you will see that I am right. And they are trying to take over health care 100%. If you're for it, then you probably love it. If you question that, then you might have some issues. But she went on to say, this operative of Bernie Sanders, the way we approach our movement is sometimes, listen to this, they're telling you, sometimes making big, rapid change, and sometimes it requires smaller gains that ultimately transform the discourse. The most patient political party on the planet is the Communist Chinese. Communists are very patient. Chinese communists are very patient. They don't look at things at like one human lifetime. These progressives have learned to take incremental. Think about our country. It has, if we all of a sudden say right after World War II, just jump to where we are now, it wouldn't have been possible. It's like that frog boiling deal. They're slowly simmering us. The thing I'll tell you, if you're new to the show, you may not have heard this, but progressives, and I've had very personal experience with this, they cannot be reasoned with. They cannot be dealt with. They cannot be negotiated with. They can only be defeated at the ballot box. They will never stop. They will never surrender. And if you give them an inch, they will absolutely take a mile. They take everything ultimately to the extreme. They start slow. Abortion, to me, is one of the best examples of this. Remember when it was supposedly safe, legal, and rare? That's kind of how it was sold to Americans under the Clintons. It went from safe, legal, and rare to, as Rush Limbaugh says, the fourth trimester now, where they literally have a conversation. Democrats say, governors of the Democrat Party say, we'll have, after the baby's born, we'll make it comfortable. That governor in Virginia, Northam, said this. We'll make the baby comfortable, and then we'll have a discussion of whether to off with its head, basically. That shows you where they're willing to go, and they're willing to go that length in every single aspect they want to. They can only be defeated. You cannot negotiate with them. They will trick you every time. The most contentious debates between moderates, back to the article here, this is about the Democratic Party platform and basically Bernie Sanders calling the shots. The most contentious debates between moderates and progressives, if there are no moderates left in the Democratic Party, they're just varying degrees of leftists. I'm not talking about Democratic voters. I'm talking about the leadership of the Democratic Party are extremist progressives, no matter what. They're just, some are more than others. Some are more coy about it than others. But progressives drafting the platform were over health care, criminal justice reform, and Israel. And as I say, there are no moderates. I want to play a video for you. Now, this was back, I believe, in 2012 in Obama's second, in his reelection for president. The Democratic Party, and I want you to pay close attention to this. This was a debate about putting God, the word God, period, in the party platform, and whether or not to keep the goal of Jerusalem being the capital of Israel. course, President Trump took care of that. But they literally were having a debate about this, whether to put God back in the party. And listen to the vote on this and how the Democratic Party establishment pushed this through. If you want some idea of how they'd govern if we give them real power, I think this video answers a lot of questions. Check it out.
Come before you today to discuss two important matters related to our party's national platform. As an ordained United Methodist minister, I am here to attest and affirm that our faith and belief in God is central to the American story and informs the values we've expressed in our party's platform. In addition, President Obama recognizes Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, and our party's platform should as well. Mr. Chairman, I have submitted my amendment in writing, and I believe it is being projected on the screen for the delegates to see. I move adoption of the amendment as submitted and shown to the delegates.
A motion has been made. Is there a second? Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, the matter requires a 2/3 vote in the affirmative. All those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. In the opinion of the... Let me do that again. All of those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. I guess.
You've got a rule, and then you've got to let them do what they're going to do. Rules.
I'll do that one more time. All those delegates in favor say aye. All those delegates opposed say no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 have voted in the affirmative. The motion is adopted, and the platform has been amended as shown on the screen. Thank you very much.
That's good enough. I mean, if that doesn't show you the core of the Democratic Party and where it is now, I don't know what will. First of all, they literally are voting as to whether to put God in the platform. Keep in mind, this is important because our Constitution guarantees us inalienable rights, right? Protection of inalienable rights, which means God-given. In other words, man can't take them away because they're given to us by God. So it's a little important, that aspect of it, if you believe in the Constitution. Now, if you want to fundamentally change America, one way would be take God out of everything, right? And make human beings a supreme power. That's what the Democratic Party wants. And then they're voting on whether or not to keep the capital or to make in the platform itself the request that Jerusalem be the capital of Israel. Every president since World War II has made that commitment of both parties. Only one actually did promises made, promises kept. I wonder who that was. Little old DJT, right? Donald J. Trump. But then they go on. What really is telling is they're supposed to have a 2/3 majority to change anything in the platform. Because keep in mind, it had already been taken out, right? And they call that a couple of times. Now, it sounds to me like the nose had it, but there definitely was not 2/3. And what did they do? You remember that? I don't know if you catch it. Go back and listen to it. The woman in the background telling him, you got to rule and let them do whatever they're going to do. And he comes back and just rules that, yeah, in the opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. If you want to know what's going to happen if you elect the Democrats, the peace-loving, democracy-loving Democrats that push things through. That's why they're already talking about doing away with the filibuster. We mentioned that yesterday. That tape right there shows you pretty much everything you need to know about the Democratic Party. And that was in 2012. Which way do you think they have gone since then? I'll let you decide that. Though their deliberations on both the panel and task forces were more hidden from public, this is very important, public now compared to 2016, so they're keeping us behind closed doors. When the intra-party conflict was on display in nationwide meetings about Democratic agenda, the opposite flanks of the party still fought this year over even small wording changes. You know who is very relieved that we're not really going to have normal conventions this year? The Democratic Party. Think about it. They're doing everything they can to keep from having a normal convention. They came out 2 months ago and said they weren't going to have a regular convention, right? They didn't even wait till even the last minute. Matt, we're not doing it. They don't want you to see what they're doing. They don't want exposure like that video I just showed you to be on national TV. They want to do this all behind the scenes. They want to keep Joe Biden in the basement. They want to keep their real agenda hidden from you, the American people. Because think about this. This convention debate sums it up too. The Democrats are trying to find every way possible not to have a national convention, not to have Joe Biden come out of the basement, let alone debate, while the Republicans, now you could disagree with them on this, that's fine, but the Republicans are fighting tooth and nail to try to have a full-blown convention in front of the American people. What do you think that means? One is very proud to say and wants the American people to see what they stand for, and the other one, not so much. Sanders' aides see the drafting committee as one part of a multi-step process, a means to an end, which also include the Unity Task Force that formed. Did they look like they were trying to get unity in that video we just said? Task force they formed with Biden to, and keep in mind, the ones that were going nay, those were the Bernie people, to nudge the former, who were running the party now, nudge the former vice president and the Democratic Party to the left this year. Wow. So they're saying that they're going to move the Democratic Party even further left. How are they going to do that? I mean, I don't know how much further left. Kind of like that one Democratic congressman talking about building bases in Guam. If they keep building bases on one side of the island, it might flip. Yeah, that logic is with the Democratic Party. If they keep moving to the left, they might roll over and be to the right. Who knows? But the bottom line on platform, this is I'm painting a broad brush here, and I'm talking about both parties. Platforms don't really matter when it comes to governing, usually. Now, they do with the structure, how they elect the presidents or their candidates and all that kind of stuff. And it's important because you get to the idea of where they'd like to go. It's kind of a wish list and all. But, you know, presidents ignore the party platform all the time on both sides of the aisle. They've done that. They do it all the time. So it doesn't have near the power that you might think it does. But I put a big but before that. It may now. If Joe Biden becomes president with basically backed like Game of Thrones by Bernie Sanders and they're running the show with Ocasio-Cortez, they're going to use that platform like a hammer, man, and just beat it over the heads of people. This is what we voted for. Trust me, you rarely hear Republicans say that about their platform. You don't even really hear it about Democrats saying it. But trust me on this. I believe that if Biden gets to be the president, they will use that platform like a hammer to hit it over the American people. Back to the article. They anticipate more lobbying, talking about these progressives, including over foreign policy, will take place in the coming days among members of the platform committee. Progressives on that panel are considering, there are nothing but progressives on that panel, pushing amendments to support, this is their big goals, legalizing marijuana, defunding the police, and they say both of which Biden opposes, as well as changes involving Israel. Biden does not oppose defunding the police. He's coy about that. It's not Biden even, it's his handlers, because they realize that's probably not a good subject. What did Biden actually say? He didn't come out and say he supported defunding the police, but what he said was he was for reallocating resources. Wow. You talk about a political reallocating resources. So if I'm your boss and I come in and say, you know, I'm not really going to cut your pay. What I'm going to do is reallocate some of your pay to another project I have over here. I'm not cutting it. I'm not for defunding you. I'm not trying to defund you, any of your pay. I'm just going to reallocate some of it. You think, and see how that helps you pay your bills, man. These people are coy. And will we have a country if Joe Biden is actually elected? I don't know. And as far as like, I've always got this question with like Israel and American Jews, which tend to vote Democratic in big numbers, very reliable Democratic voters. Why? I don't understand it. Please, if you're a Jewish person out there, please explain to me why you would ever, especially now, vote for a Democrat. If you love the state of Israel at all, have any feelings about it at all, how could you possibly vote for any Democrat anywhere at any time? I don't understand it. Sanders, and especially when you look at what President Trump has done to support our greatest friend and ally in the world, which is very important. There's a difference between a friend and an ally. An ally, joins up with you when it's in mutual self-interest. And I got no issue with that, by the way. A friend is actually someone who allows you to be wrong and still supports you because they know in the end that you're with them. Israel is our friend, ally, and our friend, and I don't know that very many countries fit that bill. Certainly in the Middle East they don't. Sanders staffers also pointed to some anti-interventionist language in the draft as a victory. So they're going to be the anti-war party again, right? Really. Whatever happened to the anti-war part of the Democratic Party? They've been obliterated, particularly compared to 2016 platform's foreign policy proposals, which they viewed as overly hawkish. Democrats believe the United States should not impose regime change. Really? Regime change countries and reject that as the goal of U.S. policy toward Iran, the 2020 document reads. That is absolutely nonsense, man. The Democratic Party, one thing that there are hawks in both parties. Remember when Donald Trump proposed and moved like 50 troops in Syria? 50, not 5,000, 50 troops. The Democrats were, including Bernie Sanders, by the way, were leading the charge and howling how that was just, going to destroy everything else. Oh, it was treasonous. I mean, they called him everything but a child of God. Donald Trump is trying to get us out of Afghanistan. And yet, who is fighting it? Democrats and Republicans, because the swamp is the deepest when it comes to supporting war. And both sides are guilty of that. But the bottom line in all this, the platform of, let me just help the Democrats out here. Let me put this in simple language for you. Why don't you just come out and admit that you have a platform and your platform is called America Sucks? That's really what the Democratic platform is. If you look at what they're saying, including Joe Biden, the moderate, America sucks. It's always sucked. It sucks for some more than others. And if you elect us, we'll make it suck equally for everyone. That is the modern Democratic Party platform. We're about out of time, but I got just enough here to bring you this quick story about Mad Maxine Waters. This is a Breitbart story. Mad Max Waters, Trump's paramilitary, are a trial run he is organized to not accept losing the election. Wednesday on MSNBC's The Readout. Wow, Joy. I mean, the fact that they put her to the top of their echelon there says a lot about them as well. But she said, Maxine Waters in an interview said, President Trump ordering the use of federal police officers in Portland, Oregon, and are threatening to do the same in other cities. Basically, they're trying, they had like 17 people shot at a funeral service in Chicago a couple of days ago to quell the ongoing protests as a trial run, which she says was a part of a to not accept what happens when we have the election if he's not elected. So, you know why she says that? Because if she were there, that's exactly what she would do. The Democrats have never accepted President Trump as the duly elected president of the United States. And they say he's unhinged. I can't wait till we reelect the man and he becomes unleashed. What are they going to do now? They'll be trying to call out the troops. Waters said the people of this country need to be worried. What she's talking about, and I'll sum it up with this, she's talking about President Trump putting federal agents to stop the violence in places like Portland, Oregon, and Chicago and New York City and other places. He's trying, and she even mentions, he hadn't even talked to the mayors and governors, which is nonsense. The reason they're going in there is because the mayors and the governors refuse to do their dadgum job. So they suspect, they really believe that President Trump will call out the army to keep himself in the White House. I mean, these people are nuts, man. But they suspect what they know they would do. Because it was that old saying, you show somebody who doesn't trust anybody, and I'll show you somebody who cannot be trusted. So I hope you've enjoyed the show today as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks Facebook page, like it, and share it with others. A lot of people have been asking me how they can continue to support the show. The best way to do that beyond liking it, sharing it, and watching every day, which I don't take for granted, I thank you very much. Look at our sponsor link. It's up in the description on the Facebook entry. Look at the description there. Hit that sponsor link and check it out. Our main sponsor right now is one Big Daddy Unlimited. It's all things Second Amendment. We're getting ready to have a contest and a big giveaway starting next month. So stay tuned. Check out that link and continue to help us. We greatly appreciate that. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all agree that no matter what, we need to pray for this great nation at this particular time, always. But as I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.